Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Black Lives Matter discussion group. Today, we're going to be talking about what it means to use your power to heal racism. This week, Granville shared an interesting article with the group in our group chat about how, I think it was like Coca-Cola companies training on making sure there's no racism in the work environment. The training was basically sharing that whiteness is bad, and they use this term like "don't be white." We'll link the article in the comments, but yeah, we were feeling into that, and we were like, something feels weird here. This isn't really helping. And this got me thinking about how our last discussion we talked a lot about the movie Black Panther, and in that movie there's themes of how are we going to solve racism, basically. And the villain wants to solve it by basically getting back at white people and oppressing them as revenge for all the oppression Black people have had to endure, all the abuse that they've had to endure. But that doesn't solve the problem. And the Black Panther in the movie was no, that's not it. But he did take he was when they were in that in their country, I forget what it's called, but they kind of were not really sharing their gifts and kind of withholding their love from the world. And I saw that as a really and when I saw that as withholding your power, withholding God's love from others, when they were challenged by this villain, they had to change, and they had to see what was going on in the outside world. They had to figure out, okay, well, we want to help our brothers and sisters. We want to love them and share our power, share that they can be powerful too, but not like this guy who's trying to be mean and get revenge. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about this idea of trying to get revenge instead of just healing that hurt place. Because we've seen it throughout Black movements, the civil rights movement was not about revenge. It was more just getting your rights. And the Black Power movement, the core of it wasn't about that either, but there was some offsprings of anti-whiteness that came up that kind of was still promoting the same message of separation, but that wasn't the whole movement, So I was wondering what you guys are thinking about this topic and how we can approach it and tackle it.
Yeah, so I think you touched on quite an important space in this race against racism, because I feel like, the challenge is that you don't heal it by asking people to be less of themselves. You kind of, you heal it by asking everybody to be true to the core of themselves, which is love. So when a company puts out a message in training, whether inadvertently or advertently, saying be less white, what are you actually saying? Because intrinsically, whiteness is not the issue. Intrinsically, the issue is the challenge against people of different colors because of their color. And so the associated lack of power, or the associated lack of acceptance or lack of belonging, and the associated oppression. So when a message like "be less white" goes out, it feels to me like it's perpetuating some type of oppression, which is definitely not the way to heal racism. You don't heal oppression by oppressing something. You kind of need to air that thing out. Like, you know, it's as simple as when you have a mess on the floor. You don't sweep the mess underneath a carpet that's standing there. You kind of get rid of the mess. And so for me, the messiness is not be less of who you are. The message for me would feel more, be more of who you are and accept the beauty in all of our differences. And so when you bring up the example of what happens in the Black Panther movie, where the king eventually says, well, you know, actually, we have these resources. We have this advancement. We need to share it. They're coming from, those people are coming from a place of not having a lack. They're coming from the place of let's uplift each other. They're not coming from a place of let's oppress those people that don't have. They're coming from a place of let's share what we do have to uplift everybody.
Yeah, I like that, especially because if you're telling people to be less white, it like what comes up for me is like as you're telling someone to be less white so that you don't offend or make someone who isn't white feel less than you. But as you're telling them to be less, it's like, well, now I feel less. Like I feel like you don't want them to be at their top because you don't think that I can match that, or you think I'm going to be offended somehow. And yeah, that's really ridiculous because everyone is responsible for themselves. You can't tell your just I don't know, it'd be so weird for like Jeff and Shaleia to be like, be less of who you are so everyone here can feel equal. Like, what the hell? Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, you want everyone to be at their top, because when they're shining and when they're able to be who they are, you're really giving them the opportunity to speak their truth and really show what they have to offer, what they have to bring to the table. And I don't think that, of course, the color should have anything to do with that. It actually kind of surprised me that Coca-Cola did that because Coca-Cola has been around for like so long that you would think they would be about unity and wanting to have that oneness within their community, within their company. So it did take me back a little bit to see that. However, it's just a chance to do some healing here and to really look at how big companies like this have an impact and what we really desire to see from those companies, from those people who can do things within this world to make a change, especially because they're one of the top 5 brands that are known around the world. Like anyone could like see it and know exactly what it is. And so for them to show up that way, it was quite interesting for me.
I think maybe like the core desire is to find unity and to work towards that, but I feel like the means, like the process to do it is not the right one. So what I feel like um, is that maybe companies like Coca-Cola wanted to say that we are equal by lowering everyone so that everyone could be equal, but it's kind of a lack mentality. And I've seen that in a lot of like group of friends and people at school during the years. It's like we stand Black people and LGBTQ people, it's like we put them on a pedestal and we lower themselves because it's their time to shine. And so for people, it's like kind of a way to, I think the desire is to balance the society and say that maybe this is the way to have balance between different races, but it's not the way. And it's actually because they don't know that by being yourself and like uplifting yourself into a higher vibration, you push everyone to higher themselves into your vibrations, and you meet them in heaven, not by lowering your vibration, basically.
Yeah, and I think what you bring up a very important component in terms of striving for unity, but almost doing it in the wrong way. And I wanna kind of equate it to, you don't tell a tall basketball player to be shorter, so to be less tall, so that a shorter basketball player can up their game, you know. I mean, if you think of it in those really practical terms, you just see the ridiculousness in the illusion there. Like, how do you encourage sportsmen to be at the top of their game when you're telling the number one and number two performer, maybe you should just slow down your pace a little bit so that people can catch up? I kind of feel like the unity should be in encouraging people to always be at the top of their game, regardless of their color. So when you say be less white, what does that actually mean? Because whiteness in and of itself is not the trait that makes you successful. It may have been a trait that has given you access to opportunities that other people, that people of color may not have had. But intrinsically, the color white does nothing for anybody's ability to do anything. It's only the associations of history and culture and all of those other things that kind of stack up on top of it and create a different picture. Whiteness in and of itself is not intrinsically powerful. Just like blackness in and of itself is not intrinsically powerful. At the core, the person is intrinsically powerful because they are.
Yeah, as you say that, what had came up for me earlier, like when I was thinking, like, how does that make me feel when they say be less white? What came to me was like, be less superior. It was kind of the energy that came up behind it. Like somehow, yeah, there's like this better than, or yeah, it's just this feeling like there's like a superiorness, like you need to like come down to their level. You can't be above them. You need to come down to their level. Is that feeling? And it feels really bad. That feels, it just feels like one of the things that I've noticed, like with working with teams, is like, even if you have like a top person, there's still something that they don't feel always confident with. There's always something that they're working through that is, just not their strongest trait. However, someone who may not be the top performer, that could be their strongest trait. And that's what brings that unity, that oneness. That's when you have like someone who that's really good at something that can help you learn there. In return, you can help them learn, like really seeing it that way. I think, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like what is the way they could have like worded that to where they could have got their point across without having to directly be like, be less white.
So what I want us to do, because you touched on something that is almost the dichotomy of these two things, right? So the sense of superiority attached to whiteness by in an inversion could mean a sense of inferiority by attached to not whiteness. So when you say that it feels bad, what is that feeling that you are specifically feeling right now?
That I am not the same, that I'm not good enough that as my white brother or sister.
Okay, and so
Yeah.
so that the feeling is something that's probably driven in an illusion. So what is the truth in this space?
The truth is that I'm equal to my brothers and sisters. I'm one with my brothers and sisters.
And where does your value come from?
From God.
Right. And do all of your brothers and sisters have God equally?
Yes.
And so knowing that, how do you feel now?
Loved. Equal.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of compassion for those who don't
Mm-hmm.
see that. A lot of compassion for those who don't know they have God too.
Mm-hmm. They're feeling underneath the need to be compassionate for them at this point. I feel like there's something else lower down in terms of a feeling.
There's forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. And who do you feel forgive?
Myself for, choosing the illusion of separation instead of knowing the truth of they are one with me, or one child of God.
Awesome. And releasing that illusion, how do you feel now?
Peaceful, loved,
Does it feel
powerful.
complete? Is there a feeling of completion, or do you feel like you could possibly go deeper here?
No, I think there's something a little deeper here. Yeah, so I guess there's like this feeling of anger, like an upset that it feels like sometimes those who are in charge try to like turn my brothers and sisters against each other.
And in truth, do they have the power to do that?
No.
Who has the power to overcome all of that?
God.
Right. And can you comfortably sit in God's power in this space and allow God to do the work?
Yeah, that's where I was feeling sad, is because I was giving my power over to them, giving my power over to the illusion that I could be turned against my brothers and sisters.
What is the truth of your power?
What was that?
What is the truth of your power?
That it can't be taken from me.
And knowing that, how do you feel?
Safe. Yeah, just really choosing to know that like my good can't be taken from me. And in truth, my brothers and sisters want to align with me. They want to be one with me.
Mhm. And can you allow God to reveal how that oneness comes to manifest in your reality?
Yeah, I choose to surrender to how God manifests that in my reality.
What do you need to do in order to manifest that in your reality?
Love myself.
And accept that God has the perfect way for you.
Yeah, I do choose to accept that God has the perfect choice for me.
How does that feel?
It feels really peaceful.
Anything else? Does it feel complete?
Yeah, just to surrender and give God his job back. Yeah, that feels complete.
Would you like to just allow all of that healing to come out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Allow it to integrate and to ground and to just stand on the shoulders of the master in this space.
Yeah, that's 1222 here as we say that. A partnership with God.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the card that we have is empathy. You feel and understand the emotions of another in the service of love.
That's awesome. I actually pulled that card yesterday. Like seriously, you can't make up that. You can't make that stuff up, right?
One thing that came up as Kanisha was healing is like another important thing to remember about power is like, you know, not like giving it away, not like letting people walk all over you, you know. And like that's another thing, like we have to make sure we're putting up boundaries with our like people who are saying like be less white. Like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna be less who I am. And like also what came up as well as like the Black Panther movement, like you know, they like Black people in that time period still are, but like they were experiencing a lot of police brutality, and they're like, enough is enough. We're gonna claim our power here. We're gonna get some guns and, you know, like put up that boundary. Like, stop messing with us. Stop treating us like garbage. And yeah, like, you know, that's like really like that's been a theme coming up lately this week, is just like making sure you're honoring yourself fully, like making sure you're putting up boundaries, and like, you know, not putting up with any abuse. Like I pulled like I got this new deck called the Movie Tarot deck, and I pulled Samuel L. Jackson's card from Pulp Fiction, and it's just like, you know, like not putting up with people's bullshit, like that energy. So yeah, that's another thing that's really important about using your power. So just want to share that.
Yeah, so when you mentioned the Black Panther Party movement, one of the things that came up for me was in South Africa we had an almost similar type of thing. And it's in Africa, it's a word in, well, it's a phrase in an African language in our country, and which is Mkonto Wesizwe, which means spear of the nation. And so that kind of energy of fighting the system was also quite entrenched in that kind of part, like that movement's kind of manifesto and their action in kind of fighting oppression. And I think one of the bigger things in South Africa was that there was a suppression of the majority in this instance, and not an oppression of minorities. So one of the things that was kind of used was violence tactics, the way the Black Panther Party did. And actually, the movement in South Africa started in 1961. And when I read up on the Black Panther Party, that movement started in 1966. But there's lots of coincidence. And the movement in South Africa was banned by both the South African government, the ruling government at the time, and the United States ruling government at the time. So I just like, there was like some kind of, there was parallels in terms of people standing up to the system. But what I feel like has happened is it's also entrenched an energy of fighting and warring and struggling, which is probably one of the reasons why there's such significant work to do around healing the energy of the hurt behind racism. Because that fight for safety and security and belonging and belongingness and acceptance, those are kind of intrinsic things. Humanity, by just the way we've been socialized over decades, people are very tribal. And one of the biggest things about people is belonging in a tribe, because it gave you safety, it gave you security. And so in medieval times, one of the ways to punish people that didn't conform was to ostracize them from the tribe and to banish them from the tribe. So it kind of forced this group think and just entrenched this tribalism, because you either conformed or you were rejected. So there's still that, I think there's still that strength of hurt attached to the rejection and kind of being ostracized from your community if you didn't say the same things or act the same way and those kind of things. I think that's where the struggle has been for people possibly not actually standing up more fully for the right things. Because the idea is not to be right. The idea is to stand up for what is right.
I totally agree. And that hurt is exactly why Coca-Cola said that in their training, because there's still hurt around whiteness, equating racism, equating abuse. And that's not it. Like, something external doesn't mean that. It's just about healing the abuse within us, and not putting up with anything anything abusive in our reality. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And
I like that you, sorry, I just want to, this last little bit is I like that you mentioned that boundaries are quite important, because again, boundaries are not about picking up a gun. It's that to me, that feels a bit like tyrannical energy. So the boundaries is just, again, kind of saying that abuse is not accepted in my reality, and I choose to call in my perfect reality.
Yeah, well, I think just like at that time, it was basically like a war zone for Black people. So like it makes sense to why they would have to pick up a gun, because it's literally like their lives are being threatened every day. But like now I don't think that's necessary, but like at that time I feel like it was to protect their lives. And so sometimes like Jeff and Shaleia teach, like you got, like your life is important and you got to do what you got to do to protect it. But yeah, like it doesn't need to come to that point now, hopefully. For sure.
Mm.
I think Malcolm X put that hurt into words for me when he said that basically our two communities, black and white, cannot live together, or one is going to suppress the other or enslave the other, and that we need a black nation, like an entirely black nation. And so I think it stems from that feeling of despair and struggle and powerlessness that people are feeling about, and that we still feel today, about not finding that solution to living peacefully together and in unity. And so I think that touches on the core of the block, which is like we feel powerless to find solution to heal this through. So we are gonna do what we can to kind of live together. And sometimes it results in asking someone like, actually, can you slow down? Can you be less than, so that other people can exist or other people can catch up? And so, yeah, that's what I felt about it. And
Yeah, like the solution to the problem is not to choose separation. It's like there's separation, let's choose more separation. No, that's not going to really help. And that's why like none of that really panned out, right? Like that's why like Malcolm X's vision for like a black nation really didn't happen, because like God wants us to be able to work together. Obviously there's abuse that is still being worked through, but you know, that's why we're still here together. We want to work through it. We all want to. So yeah.
I actually wanted to bring up like kind of what I've been feeling into as to what the upset is of all of this. And like it was back when Kanisha was talking a little bit about like superiority and inferiority and was healing that. I think like the next layer essentially is like arrogance. Because arrogance can be seen as like I'm not divine and I need to take the divinity away from another and try and overpower them and I'm better than them and all that stuff, right? And then there's also the arrogance of I'm not divine and I'm going to give my power away to the other person because that somehow will make me feel better. And so in all areas, it's just like everyone not believing they're divine. And what actually, like when you guys are talking a lot about the like tyrannical stuff and like even like when Marley was talking about revenge and things like that, what came up for me was I had watched this TV show, and the finale of the show, there was like this group of people who thought that like the end of times was here and they had to like fight this like huge battle, and that was going to be their ascension, and they would be able to ascend, and that's what they thought was what was for the you know, whatever. And so what ended up happening is they went on the battlefield with the other group of, you know, human beings, and they were like fighting or whatever. And basically someone like just like what the main character went up and was like, hey guys, why don't we just stop fighting? This is not actually what, you know, they want for us to do or whatever. Like we're not meant to fight. Like can't we all just get along, sort of feeling, right? And basically they all accepted unity and they all laid down their weapons and recognized that there would be no winning if one side won or whatever, like it you know, whatever. And what ended up happening is they all ascended and they all like, you know, realized that the real test was the battle was to see that you are one with your brother and sister.
That is so crazy because
Yeah.
I had been like reading random quotes, and the quote that came up, I don't know his name. I think it's like Sun Tzu,
Yeah.
but it was like all battles are won before it is fought.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like,
That's what you were talking
yeah,
about.
like I just feel like you know, I think that the reason is that like everybody is taught this principle, like what's ingrained in consciousness right now is like you receive power from your brothers and sisters. You receive power you know, through taking from someone else or something like that, or making someone else feel less than, and that's what makes you feel more powerful. It's kind of like the crabs in the bucket.
Like making them look bad,
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. It's kind of like the crabs in the bucket, how the crabs like have to climb on top of each other to try and get out of the bucket and they keep falling. It's that same principle, right? And so I feel like the thing that needs to kind of just be shifted within consciousness and what can be healed here is just seeing that like God is our source. Seeing that God is our power. And I know you guys already kind of mentioned this too, but I just want to like reiterate it for the viewer of like remembering that like that this is all just like an upset and not like giving drama or power to
Making a decision out of.
right. Well, you can't make a decision out of upsets either. That's the thing too. But like basically that you know, I think with racism sometimes what like just needs to happen is just to you know, like we said, heal rather than trying to create a sense of like revenge or yeah, it's better to just like heal the situation and to just like love your brother and sister and have compassion and see like your divinity and their divinity and not starting the fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean?
Let God
Let God handle everything, because that's the other thing too, like you can't you can like heal all that you want and it doesn't like change what someone is gonna do or how they're gonna be essentially. Right, we're not yet at that place of perfect union where we're all kind of one and as a consciousness healing at that quick of a capacity, right?
Everyone else is just gonna be like, oh yeah, like
not yet, right? We're not there yet in that quickness of it, but
we just do it. We just keep doing it within.
Exactly, and then you just have compassion, right?
Compassion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and so like that's I think the thing that I've kind of like been feeling as I've been like hearing a lot around and like looking at some of the stuff that like Granville and looking at the Black Panther Party and things like that. So yeah, that's just what I want to share.
Yeah, I think you touched on, sorry, Ganesha. I think you touched on quite an important thing as well. And what we need to be clear on is that, you know, we are reiterating that our healing is internal, but there are also those action steps that God puts in front of you. And those steps might look like initiating a fight on the outside, but they may not be that. They may just be, this is the step to enforcing this boundary. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to honor myself here because God is asking me to honor myself here. And for me to be able to say, actually, no, you do not get to tell me I must be less white. You know, that kind of thing. So I think we also need to be very clear that all our healing is definitely internal, but there will be external steps that God will guide us to take. And to not take them is also arrogant, especially when we've asked for guidance. And the guidance says, this is the system within which you are living or working, and therefore you need to take this step.
I couldn't have said it better myself. You go.
You're muted, Kanisha.
Sorry, the whole arrogance thing. What came up for me was last week or the week before when Drake brought up feeling really like guilty and bad for what his ancestors did. And so I kind of like get that same energy, like Coca-Cola, like feeling guilty and like bad. And so they're trying to love in this way, but they're not. And so that was like the energy that came up, was they were doing it more out of like guilt and shame instead of I want it to be equal and unity. And so it's really having to release that guilt and shame and having to just take responsibility for you now instead of what has happened in the past. And that's what Coca-Cola is trying to do, is trying to make up for that. I also feel like yeah, there's just like a fear of like offending those of color. And so they're trying to figure out how not to do that, and yet they're projecting it and doing exactly what they don't want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that all of our examples, all that we have talked about, show is that where consciousness is at today is going to one extreme, from one extreme to another, basically. And I can even say that with the Black Panther movie, it's like basically at the beginning we want to guard all our power to ourselves, so we're gonna hold off and we're gonna hide, and then we have this disturbance and the solution to take over the world and make white people suffer, basically. And then the king says like, no, we are gonna look at our shit, we are gonna heal, we're gonna find balance, and basically we are gonna go through our blogs and then take actions where God calls us to take actions. And so like there is like this need for consciousness to learn that you do not find balance by going to another extreme. You find balance by healing at the core and being compassionate and gentle to yourself and taking actions where you are called to.
Amen. I was gonna share something that related to like what Kanisha was talking about, like and it also relates to what Granville was talking about like the tribal thing, like being ostracized. Like that's still happening today, like with cancel culture. Everyone's afraid of getting canceled, and Coca-Cola was afraid of getting canceled probably, and then got canceled, which is like it. But yeah, like that's, you don't need to be like worried about pleasing everyone. Like when you're healing and when you are doing God's work, just focus on God, you know. Like I feel like there's a lot of like white people in like the Black Lives Matter movement that are like trying to strive for like Black appreciation or validation, like, oh, like you're doing a good job, white person. Like you don't need to do that. Look for your validation from God, not from others. And that's like what people really want. You know, that's what the movement really wants, is for everyone to go to God.
So the card that we have right now is respect. You value everyone's unique perspective on the path of love. But that definitely goes with like having to really put those boundaries, is really having to respect yourself, really having to honor yourself in those spaces, and really honoring God as just showing up as your true divine self.
And respecting the divine in everyone, basically, not lessening anyone.
And I think you touched on quite an important thing when you say respect the divine in everyone, because it's very easy to lose sight of the divine in everyone because they are that, or they are that, or they did this, or they did that. But the fact of the matter is, just like where they are mirroring the bad, they're mirroring the good, they're mirroring the confusion. So there's always a part of us that kind of needs to just take a step back and go, well, you know, where's my healing piece here? And sometimes your healing piece isn't that there's an upset. Sometimes your healing piece is that actually accept your peace. You know, that's one of the things that has kind of come up for me in this week, was just like, and I think it was a post from, I think, Madhu or somebody in the open forum that said, you know, that energy of looking for an upset or wanting to be upset. And I was like, oh, wow, you know, there's that. Like sometimes we actually don't trust our peace. And so it feels confusing. And so we start to label it as numbing out to our feelings, or we start to label it as looking for an upset. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes it's just that we don't trust our peace. And actually, that's where your power is. Your power is in being peaceful.
And Jeff touches on this too. He's like, I'm not going to entertain your ego. I will love the divine within you. He's like, but I am not going to entertain that bullshit. And that's really like what we're being asked of here. Like, do not entertain that. Do not entertain the drama or give into ego, but really choose to love the divine within that person. And if they're not choosing to claim their divinity, then, like you said, if it requires you to put a boundary in the physical after doing your inner work, then you have to honor yourself there. You have to respect yourself there.
And you have to accept their choices, regardless of whether you like them or not. You know, sometimes the honoring yourself is honoring them in whatever they've chosen and not engaging further in it.
You know, I was thinking about, because like Kanisha had said earlier, what could have Coca-Cola done that would have maybe like been better? I feel like,
You know what it would be like?
what would it be?
It would be like in kindergarten,
Mhm.
like when you get a little syllabus or something, or
Yeah.
and it's like, treat everyone how you would like to be treated.
Yeah.
Just like some simple thing like that like describe those types of commandments.
Yeah, isn't that like the golden rule or something like that in school? They always put it up
like
everywhere. Yeah, and like I think also like a good practice too for any like corporation, for people, is just to like teach people how to reflect, how to look within, how to, you know, when they are feel like they want to fire an employee, or they like, I don't know, whatever it is, when they're at the company level and they're like working with an employee that is of color, to like reflect, like, is this a, what is it called, objective bias, what is it called, unconscious bias, like how am I actually feeling here, what's happening, like just like
any bias at all,
right? That's, I mean, that's true, right? Like just like having that like time of reflection. And I know you were in HR at one point, Granville, but like having that extra resource where someone is able to talk it through to like feel into if this is in fact a racist issue, right? And I think just like having those conversations and dialogues is like, I think the first step for people, because I don't think tomorrow we're going to see corporations bringing in the idea that, God is your source and all that stuff. People aren't really ready for that yet, I don't think.
We can only hope. We can only call it into our reality.
We can call it into our reality.
Yeah.
But I think just the idea of reflecting within, and I think that's the thing that corporations can be doing, and just like basic understanding of like that we're all one, and yeah, I love that idea of like, treat everyone the way that you would like to be treated.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
kind
you
of
know,
thing.
it's really almost it's an intrinsic principle, an intrinsic spiritual principle, and it's been kind of spoken about by various religions across various times. Like, it's not a new concept. The fact of the matter is, it might not just be a concept that needs to be more entrenched and more almost reintroduced. Treat thy neighbor as thyself. You know, it's literally that simple. Treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated. It's not confusing. If you want somebody to be kicking you in the teeth, then yes, go around kicking people in the teeth. But if you don't want that, why the hell would you do it to somebody else? You know, it's as simple as that. And it's as simple as using those kind of examples, because people like the story, but the story in the picture just makes it so much better. It's like, well, that is insanity. Like, why would I want to kick myself in the teeth? So why would I do that to somebody else? And I think you mentioned it perfectly around that example of the crabs in the bucket trying to stand on each other's backs to get out of it. And literally, let's just be honest, nobody really succeeded by climbing on somebody else's back. And if they did, they don't get away with it in time immemorial. That is why we are sitting in the space where we are healing these kind of things, because that's the energy that was perpetrated. And yet it would have been so much simpler for everybody to say, well, hey, let's boost each other. I mean, I have done rock climbing, where you boost each other to get up the wall, or you pull each other up as a team. It's not complicated. It really isn't complicated. So, like, you know, like this illusion of the complication of getting along, the illusion of the complication of respecting each other. I don't understand what is fueling it any further. It is not complicated. We learned this as kids.
Amen. But it's like not only like is it complicated to heal like in consciousness for people, and also like the environment is teaching you that you need to fight to have what you want, and you need to fight, and you need to have it at all costs, even if it hurts other people. And so basically you forget about those principles that you are taught at kindergarten, because you think that they apply in some kind of utopian world and not the reality that you live in. And this is nonsensical, this is ridiculous, but like we need to unlearn and then relearn and redo and repractice, and until like we are always uplifting each other.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you know always strikes me is watch kids at play. They don't tell one child versus another child, you can't touch the ball because you're not white enough to touch the freaking ball. Like, kids have a ball with each other. It's just as simple as that. And I feel like some of the perpetual rhetoric that they get exposed to via media, sometimes in homes, unfortunately, is why we sit in these situations where you, one, have entitled children who do not understand the impact of their actions on the world. So it does come back to teaching our children that love is the core of everything. That's really the reality of it. That love is the core of everything. And so if you can understand that, then you can understand your divinity and your brother's divinity and your oneness as humanity. It's really not confusing.
Ego is confusing. God is simple.
Yeah, so how are all of you feeling right now?
Feels like that hour flew by.
It
Like,
did,
oh,
eh?
like it started 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. You know, that I think the nice thing is the more comfortable we get with actually just having the conversation, the lighter the conversation becomes, and the more healing the conversation becomes. And hopefully the people that are watching and do continue to watch just start to understand that it is this easy. It's this simple. You know, that there doesn't have to be complication in this space if everybody's open and vulnerable and able to say, well, you know, this was my thought, but I'm also prepared to find out more. I'm also prepared to learn more. I'm prepared to have my views challenged. And it doesn't have to be a struggle, and it doesn't have to be an attack, and it doesn't have to be a message of be less you so that somebody else can be more themselves. There's no value in that to anybody. The value to all of us is if we are all optimally healed and functioning at our optimal levels, what could we achieve as humanity? Maybe that's the question everybody should be asking.
Yeah, it's like about just coming to this place from a place of like abundance and of love. Because like if you say like racism is easy to heal to like a random like person on the street, they'll be like, what? No. But it is true. And that's why this, yeah, what you pointed out, it's like that this is easy to heal. Of course, it's a big one to heal, but that doesn't mean it's not easy. And yeah, like, yeah, we have to continue embodying like that abundance, that like we don't need to struggle. There's no poverty here, there's no lack here, there's only abundance, love, and respect here for us, and we don't need to accept any other shit.
Amen. Amen. Awesome. So yeah, thank you everybody. That has been a really fun conversation, and you know, it's been so fast. And so yeah, we thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel. You will find all our previous Why Black Lives Matter conversations have taken place, and you will also find any other live discussions that have happened in the Church of Union and in the Unionism Spiritual Discussion Group. And we look forward to seeing all of you next week for another conversation around why Black Lives Matter. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.